We try to avoid difficulty whenever possible, but I do something difficult every single day. In this video, I want to talk to you about the 3 main reasons I have adopted this practice. And by the end, you might just get inspired to do something difficult today yourself. Let's dive in. The comfort zone. The circle. This is where most people operate. This is the comfort zone. Everybody has one, and we enjoy being inside it. The typical outline usually goes something like this: going to school or a job where we do what is required of us to get by but nothing more, getting quick dopamine fixes throughout the day on our phones or other devices, spending weekends hanging out with the same people we have always socialized with, holding on to the same beliefs we have held on to for so many years, and we don't allow ourselves to consider different opinions. Basically, from what I read, it means moving with the current. Life is predictable routine that is easy to live with, no real challenges, and we find ourselves stagnating. And I can see why most people spend most of their life right here. As it were, it's a comfortable place to be, as we're not called upon to push ourselves. That is fair enough on the face of it. Why should we struggle if there is no need to do so? Yet, if we live our lives only within the comfort zone, we may innocently be doing ourselves an injustice. You see, while our comfort zone is indeed comfortable, it also has one big downside. People who get stuck here too long don't just stagnate, but they often regress backwards too. When you're doing the same things, the same way, over and over, the comfort zone itself starts to shrink. The things that you were comfortable with before are now less comfortable. Let me give you an example. Someone who's socially anxious and is afraid of social interaction generally doesn't like the idea of meeting new people. This means experiencing that is outside their comfort zone. So instead they prefer to spend their time alone, or if they do socialize, it's with people they already know well. And that's fine. But let's say this person starts spending less time with their current friends, and even more time alone. Slowly, their current comfort zone will become smaller. Due to the fact that they did not confront the fear becomes even bigger. And even calling up their current friend group might even become more difficult. So you can see how paradoxically giving in to current comfort can lead to future discomfort. So when a muscle isn't used for a longer period of time, it atrophies and gets smaller because there's no reason for it to stay big. The same thing happens when we don't challenge ourselves. We are less able to take on and deal with the bumps along life's road. And for that alone, that's reason number 1 why I try to do something difficult every day. I don't want to get stagnated, and I don't want the things I'm comfortable with now get uncomfortable in the future. However, once we push ourselves and do something that is a little more difficult or challenging to ourselves, we leave the comfort zone. Then comes the growth zone. This is the zone in which we struggle and we might feel like incompetent fools, but this is precisely where all real progress is being made. And you might have felt that yourself. In the gym, you won't improve if you lift the same weight all the time. When learning a new language, you are not improving if you only practice what you already know. To improve and to see progress, you have to leave the comfort zone and increase the challenge. That might mean increasing the weights on your lifts, or reading something new and trying to recall that information without help. Yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, you will struggle. And yes, you will probably feel like an idiot. But doing anything worthwhile requires you to go through this, because the things that does the biggest payoff always feel difficult in the moment. There's no improvement without challenge. Remember that. Challenge. Of course, the comfort zone isn't just one single zone for everything. We have multiple zones. You might be pushing yourself in some of them, stagnating in others, and even deteriorating in some. For example, you could be regressing backward with your social skills, stagnating with your work, but pushing yourself to the limit at the gym. It is upon us to determine which one needs the most work. And it is quite alright, of course, for you to just stop progressing in some areas because you are happy where you are. You don't have to push yourself on everything that you do. But in case you are not happy with where you are, then here are a few ways to move from comfort to growth. You probably have an area in mind right this minute where you're sort of stuck and wanting to get better. There are 3 ways you can go about improving it. The first way is by doing it more consistently. The second way is by doing it more intensely. And lastly, the third one is by doing it for longer lengths of time. All 3 will increase the difficulty of whatever you want to improve. I think most of them are self-explanatory, but I'll just go through them using running as an example. First of all, more consistently just basically means that instead of running 3 days a week, you try to increase it to 4 days. Since you're doing it more often, it also becomes more challenging. But this reinforces the behavior and makes it more likely for you to also do it in the future. The more intense way of doing it means you're doing more potently than what you typically do. That might be anything from trying something new, running sprints, or running uphill. In essence, instead of running at 60% of your capacity, you bump it up to 90%. In addition, this adds variety and makes the activity more fun because you're not doing the same thing every time. Thirdly, doing it for longer periods simply means spending more time on it, whenever you decide to do it. So if you usually go for a 20-minute jog, you now try to do it for 30 minutes instead. In other words, you just push yourself and stick through it a little longer than you normally do. Simple as that. And all of this can be applied to pretty much any activity. Learning a new language? Do it every day, even several times a day if you can, add 15 minutes to the time spent learning. And use active recall with spaced repetition set to help you memorize more. Want to improve your social skills? Continuously put yourself in environments where scenarios requiring socializing could pop up and attempt to add one more sentence each time you are in one, while being the one to organize outings. All of these 3 methods are a good way to move out of comfort towards growth, but some of them are more useful than others depending on the area that you're working on. For example, if you're trying to learn an instrument, you will find that it's actually better to play every day for 10 minutes than it is to play once a week for 1 intense hour. Also, you do not want to take on all 3 methods simultaneously, as that is too much too quick. Instead, you want to choose one and when the time is right, scale out from there. But more on this to come. Now, so I mentioned, most of the gains in life are about short-term, temporary discomfort. That being said, something painful does not automatically mean it is beneficial. It's uncomfortable to break your leg, but I really don't know of positive results that could come from such a thing in the long term. The area in which you should be made to feel uncomfortable has to have some sort of long-term benefit. For example, studying anything one doesn't know makes a person feel stupid at the time, but because a person actually absorbs new information, they become smarter over time. And resistance to sugar may be hard to do, but it's what lets you get in, and stay in good physical condition. Not spending your money on a new pair of shoes may be hard, but if invested right, and given enough time, it will make you wealthier. So these types of areas are where you should actually push yourself. The ones with short-term pain, but long-term gain. That is the second reason why I do something difficult every day. Even while it might feel uncomfortable in the moment, I know that my behavior will pay off in the future. And only by entering the growth zone and thus pushing myself am I able to get those positive long-term benefits. Danger zone. Okay then, so if it's clearly beneficial to leave the comfort zone, then why don't more of us do so? Well, that's because there's actually a third zone. If somebody were to push themselves too far out of their comfort zone, they just might pass the growth zone and go straight into the danger zone. This is why we feel uncomfortable in the first place. There is such a thing as pushing yourself too far. After all, if you exercise too much, you could get injured. If you work too hard, you may get burned out. And pain is really quite a good alarm, saving you from injury, because such an injury would set you way back. So it is absolutely logical why many people stay within their comfort zones. They don't want to enter the danger zone at all costs. But the problem is that from among all these people, who want to create some kind of positive change in their lives, go right into the danger zone. A friend of mine constituent is like this. A few years ago, he wanted to improve his physical health. With newfound motivation in his heart, he joined a gym and promised himself that he would do weightlifting 5 times in a week. He also promised himself that he was going to start a strict diet where he would cut down on his intake of food and eliminate all sugar. But in less than a month, he was back in his routine of sitting on the couch, watching Netflix and stuffing himself with cookies. Like everyone else, he took on too much, too fast. Which is very common when attempting to break out of the comfort zone. Nevertheless, not sticking to a plan isn't even the worst part. The more serious problem that people have now is that, since they are failing to live up to their high expectations, so too they feed into the belief that it is utterly impossible for them to change and grow. Because of this, they don't even try to improve anymore in the future. In their own minds, they are failures and shouldn't even try again. Well, what is the solution, then? How can we facilitate coming out of the comfort zone to operate in the growth zone but at the same time avoid the danger zone? Indeed, in order to effect positive change, one needs to move out of their comfort zone. But then again, it does not have to be done all at once. A much better approach is to do it little by little in small and easy steps. After all, if a person has been completely sedentary and wants to begin exercising, the idea of doing heavy weightlifting for 2 hours 5 times a week doesn't make much sense. In contrast, their chances of success are much higher if they just start off with something that they're really capable of doing. Like going to the gym 3 times a week for 45 minutes and having an easygoing session. And only when they are consistently able to do that, push more. Keep in mind that if you can't commit to making a small change, how will you commit to a large one? Just something to think about. Yet another benefit from making the change gradually is that you form a positive feedback loop. As long as you actually can do what you have set out to do, you give yourself proof that you really can enhance and change. And this, plus the fact that evidence of progress, however minute, feels good and instills more confidence in one's abilities. This in turn feeds persistence to struggle through more challenges further down the path. Success, in other words, begins to feed on itself, and you continue pushing further out of the comfort zone. Also, if you can get a positive feedback loop going in one area, it tends to spread to other areas. And that's the third reason I try to do something difficult every day. Each time I am capable of dealing with something that's out of my comfort zone, even if it's just for a little bit, that gets this positive feedback loop started. And as one would expect, success feeds into more success. That being said, you shouldn't push past your comfort zone all the time. When I say I do something difficult every day, don't mistake this for me trying to expand in every single area on a daily basis. Maybe I'm really pushing myself in one or two areas, but in that time I go back into comfort zone mode in other areas. So, this way I can keep my zone, get enough rest and recovery, too. Otherwise, I'd probably burn out. Yes, over time you want to grow. But at the same time, you want your comfort zone to catch up with new demands in its own time. This graph is just a very rough example of how I envision this should look like. You start by expanding your comfort zone, doing something difficult. You don't just keep on expanding. But once it starts to get too overwhelming, you lower the difficulty and only retract slightly above what your comfort zone was before. This allows you to get accustomed to the new layer and you allow your comfort zone to catch up to your new demands, which prevent you from burning out. Only once you have adapted to the new demands and you feel like you're ready to improve again, you push past your new comfort zone. Just like before, once you feel it's getting too hard, you pull back just above the comfort zone. You're basically always pushing yourself but coming back to get air when it gets too hard. You can continue this process until you reach the level that you want to be at. Another way you may look at it, the comfort zone is a resting place but not home. As you could probably tell, the point of this video isn't to overexert yourself until you can't go anymore. Instead, I'm trying to convince you to find a challenge worthy of bringing out better versions of yourself at things you care about. Unfortunately, too many people stop when they first taste failure or discomfort, and they never get to see what they're actually capable of. How would you know where your limit is if you have never, ever pushed yourself to the limit? It's only through this continued pushing out of their comfort zones, and embracing struggle, that anyone actually reaches their potential. Do something today that's a little bit harder. Just read a few more pages today, or just do a few extra reps today at the gym, or learn some words. Try doing something different today, and I promise you will be better than yesterday. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button to see more videos of this type. It means a lot for me, and it helps the channel grow. Anyway, thank you for watching this video till the very end. More videos are coming, and I will see you in the next one, too.